The Commanders want more points in 2025, and we've got 7 receivers that can help them get them right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday. Your friend, your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. Also helping out with the local coverage over at WUSA9.com, your DC CBS affiliate. I want to thank you for coming through for today's episode. Yeah, another big board episode. This time, we're looking at explosive receivers, everydayers. Those of you who've seen all of these big board episodes, because you see every episode, special thank you to you for coming through every single day. And anybody out there, if you're not already, please subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this episode right now. If you're new to the show, I appreciate you finding Locked On Commanders. This is a daily podcast covering your Washington Commanders, the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again soon. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Washington Commanders were 5th in scoring last year in the NFL regular season. They scored 28.5 points per game. Everydayers who have been around for a little while, especially when the Commanders weren't necessarily scoring all that much, are going to remember that I've said this multiple times in this league, in the NFL, if you expect to win, you've got to put up 24 points or more in a game. Like if you don't score 24 points or more in a game, there is a chance you're going to lose. Doesn't mean you're always going to lose when you score less than 24, but I'm just saying that's kind of the bridge that you have to cross in order to be a team that says we expect to win every single week. The Washington Commanders doing that, surpassing that number by 4.5 points per game. And if you can generate one more field goal every game, now you're up 31.5 points per game. That's the second most. It would have been the second most in 2024 had the Commanders gotten to that number. And that's where you see some of these efforts, right? Receiver Deebo Samuel, traded for from the San Francisco 49ers. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, traded for from the Houston Texans. They're going to help that effort. They're going to give Jaylin Daniels more time on the offensive line. They're going to give him another outlet, a short receiver, intermediate receiver that can turn short and quick passes into big explosive gains. And that's going to help them get that extra first down that they need. It's going to help them get that extra 10 yards they need to get into field goal range, all those things. Well, another way to do it, another way to impact that improvement in the offense is to give Jaylin Daniels more time, but also give him better weapons downfield, right? You got the short area, you got the pass pro. Jaden is going to develop naturally just from experience and having a offseason to kind of digest all of his lessons and come into a second training camp. Well, now just need to get him one of two things: a better run game, and that could certainly be impacted by the offensive line as well, and another deep weapon. Terry McLaurin is a great receiver. I think right now we can call him great, right? Finished top 20 in receptions in the NFL last year, top 15 in yards. He was second in touchdown catches behind only Jamar Chase, and he did it all while ranking 8th in intended air yards, being the only major threat for his team coming out of the receiver position. I mean, we literally saw defenses last year triple team Terry McLaurin just to try to force the Commanders to find another avenue to beat them. So what can help Terry McLaurin also helps Jaylin Daniels, right? Like that's pretty simple. Well, another receiver to threaten another area of the field like Samuel is going to help, but another deep threat also going to help. If safeties are forced to choose between Terry McLaurin and another explosive downfield target, it forces them into more one-on-ones, or it forces them into more two-high shells, which then opens things up underneath for your Deebo Samuel, your Zach Ertz, hopefully Ben Sinnott, makes your run game run into a less of a stacked box, gives Jaylin Daniels more room to operate, right? So it's just a lot of benefits coming from getting another explosive receiver. So what are we looking for? First and foremost, we're looking for speed, right? The speed to break away from the defense, stay away from the defense once you get behind them. Truly explosive range for speed in your 40 time. You're typically looking 4.2, 4.4 type of speed. Terry McLaurin coming out of Ohio State ran a 4.3, 5.40, and that's going to be our first discriminator. Well, that's going to be our discriminator. We do this with every group. We have a discriminator to cut the crowd because, again, I'm not a scouting staff. I'm only one dude. I can't watch every single guy's tape. So we got to have a discriminator in there to cut some of the players out right off the top. So any receiver that ran even a 4.41, although we're actually going to add a couple of 4.41 guys, I'll tell you why in a little bit. So anybody who ran a 4.42, I will say, is not going to be on this list. Now, that's not to say they can't be good, right? Like Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, not going to be on this list. If we have time and we can get to another receiver episode, Jaden Higgins will be very high on that list, I promise you, but he's not going to be on this specific list. Now, that's just not going to be this focus group. So you want the explosiveness demonstrated in the speed, but you also want to demonstrate it in the vertical, right? That lower leg, that lower body power is where that gets showcased. That ability to create power leads to rapid acceleration, leads to the ability to kind of cut a little bit, maybe sit down, come back for that comeback route, all those things. Leaping ability by itself obviously doesn't hurt as well if you're going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. And of course, you want players with high reception percentage on deep balls and also low drop percentage on deep balls, since deep passes are already a low percentage play. So the league leader last year in deep yard or deep ball air yard passes, those are passes that have traveled 20 or more yards in the air, was Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, the MVP. He completed 33% of his 69 attempts. Not a great percentage, even for deep ball. So if you have a deep ball target who's dropping those passes while they're already not very accurate, that number is just going to drop a little bit more, and that may be what happened to Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. You'd have to ask Joe Marino of Locked On Bills more specifically for those details. But of the top 32 quarterbacks in attempting passes that go at least 20 air yards or more, the highest completion rate last year was 52.3%, much better than Josh Allen's, but nowhere near the 70% overall completion rate that you want in your quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Again, if you have guys dropping passes, that's going to fall. Therefore, dropping balls, not great if you're going to be a wide receiver. Jaden Daniels completed 37% of his deep passes and tried 46 of them. Getting him another explosive target who can catch those passes would likely lead to a percentage and attempted number climbing. Cliff Kingsbury is more likely to call those shots, even if it's not just for Terry McLaurin, if he has a guy that he can have confidence in there. So that attempt number is going to climb, that completion percentage number could climb, because you got two dudes run down the field, single high safety. That single high guy has got to declare for one side or the other. Jaden most likely is going to put it up on the other side. Now you've got a deep ball threat who's got one-on-one coverage, and that obviously raises the chance of that pass being completed exponentially. And that's what we want. So who are the top 7 explosive receivers on our big board? After all the research that I'm about to tell you that we did to get this list, here is the ultimate list. Number 1, Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Number 2, Luther Burden III out of Missouri. Number 3, Jaylin Noel out of Iowa State. Number 4, Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Number 5, Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Number 6, Chim Dike out of Florida. Number 7, Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech. So to get to those 7 guys, again, we started with wide receiver 40 times, started with the sub 4.4s, the no slower, I should say, than 4.4 to build our 14-man list of contenders. Matthew Golden was the fastest of that list, followed by Thornton, Chim Dike after that. Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech was 4th. Arian Smith out of Georgia. Ty Felton out of Maryland. Keandre Lambert Smith out of Auburn. Jordan Watkins from Ole Miss. Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Jalen Noel from Iowa State. Dominic Lovett out of Georgia. Isaiah Nair out of Nebraska. And Kyle Williams from Washington State. Those were all your guys that ran 4.4s or faster. Now, that's only 13 dudes. I want to have at least 14. That is where the exception comes in. That is where we added the 2 guys who ran 4.41s at the combine, Luther Burden III out of Missouri and Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. So as we've done before, we made an exception to make sure that our list was as accurate as it could possibly be without getting too crazy and re-expanding the group to all the wide receivers, right? But we're also, like we've done before, going to exclude a couple of guys or one specific guy, and that is Travis Hunter. He ran a 4.4, so he qualifies for this list. The Commanders are not anywhere near drafting Travis Hunter out of Colorado, so it's just not going to be a thing that we're going to talk about in this episode, okay? Matthew Golden from Texas. Now, some of you might be saying, Matthew Golden also probably isn't going to be there. Matthew Golden from Texas is only going to stay on this list because while his stock has definitely risen into the teens, there's still some mock drafts from some people who are pretty plugged in having him go in the 20s. And that is within striking range. If he's in the 20s, that's within striking range. If Adam Peters really, really wants him, if he wanted to, I don't think he would trade up, but if he wanted to trade up, he would potentially be there. So NFL.com recently had a mock with Golden going 26th. That's definitely within range of 29 to trade up. Michael Fabiano had him going 25th. So again, those are ahead of Washington still, but they're within trade up range. So that's why we're going to keep Golden on this list. If AP feels the drive to go get him, he may very well end up in a spot where AP could go get him. From there, we got to break it down into the quantifiable and the qualified And that's what we're going to do coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that today thanks to our friends over at Upwork. Today's episode is sponsored by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. So if you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates are going to be yours to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Continuing now today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we are building our explosive receiver big board. I just gave you our big board. Now we're going to get into the weeds of how we did this, because again, the final standing, the final top 7 is not how we started with our top 40 times, right? Again, our top 40 times, starting with Matthew Golden, going into Dante Thornton and Chim Dike out of Florida, Jaylin Lane, et cetera, et cetera. Some of those guys certainly made our top 7 list, but it wasn't just because of the speed, because it takes more than just speed. So what are we going to look for? We're going to look at verticals, right? We're going to look at how high these guys can jump from their NFL scouting combine, pro day workouts. We're going to look at their deep ball reception and their deep ball drop percentage or percentages, deep ball reception percentage and deep ball drop percentage. Both of those coming to you thanks to our friends over at PFF. So that's where we're getting the data, and then the NFL scouting combine results. You can get them at NFL.com. You can get them any number of places. That's how we're going to do it. So following our data incorporation, our number one guy on the list, and again, we have a point system here. You get points for having the top rated, number for a certain category, top 3, 1 point for top 7. Cause again, we're trying to build our 7. If you fall outside the top 7, you don't get points, right? That's how we end up stacking and racking in this part of the game. So going from number 2 to number 1 on our list is wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. He comes away with the most points from this list, right? Second in 40 time, 4.3 40 time for Dante Thornton at the NFL scouting combine. And what really jumped him over Matthew Golden on this part of the evaluation was he had the number 1 reception percentage on deep ball attempts of the group. He had 70% catch rate on passes that traveled 20 plus yards in the air on just 10 targets. Now, you look at that multiple ways. If you're out there saying, dude, that's only 10 targets, that's not a big enough sample size to say that's a great percentage, I hear you. But what I'm also going to tell you is with only 10 targets, that means that every drop is 10% of your hit. So 70%, I mean, this dude caught 7 of 10 targets, 20 plus air yards downfield. I don't want to blame him because his quarterback, who is now going to go to UCLA apparently, didn't target him deep that much. I'm not going to blame him because his offense simply didn't run those types of plays, right? Receivers are very dependent. It's a very dependent position. First off, you need a quarterback who can deliver the ball to you to fit your skill set. Then you need a scheme, and you can put, that's chicken or egg. You can put one before the other, one after the other, but you need the scheme to accentuate your talents. Then you need the offensive line to give the protection for your ability, and you need a defense to actually respect your offense enough to not just surround you with defenders, right? Again, Terry McLaurin, highly respected receiver, very talented. If I told you his stat line against Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night in week 11 was how he played all the time, you tell me he wasn't a great receiver. The bottom line is very dependent position, right? So second and 40, first in deep ball reception percentage, first in drop percentage, no drops on his targets, and on his 10 targets. So you love the fact that yes, he didn't catch them all, but none of them were incomplete because he flat out dropped them. So all those moved him from the second spot after our 40 times to the first spot ahead of Matthew Golden, who fell from number 1 with his 4.2940, the fastest 40 of the group, to number 2. So not bad, not a big drop by any means, right? He's second in deep ball reception percentage. He caught 59.1% of his deep ball targets, and he had 22 of those targets. He was 6th in drop rate, so still one of the top 7 in dropping deep ball pass attempts, 7.1% on those 22 targets as well. One of the biggest risers on this group, our third place guy coming here, Jaylin Noel from Iowa State, was 10th in our 40 time, 4.3940, but he jumps to third place thanks to his first place finish in the vert, 41.5 inches. Great lower body power, great extension, great ability to get up in the air, and the fact that he was, again, one of the receivers in this group that had 0 dropped deep ball targets. He had 24 targets total, and he was also one of the top 3 deep target getters of this class, of this group of receivers. So his team in Iowa State, I mean, they target, if you watch Iowa State football, guys, they target Jaylin Noel and Jaden Higgins, both incredibly, just a large amount, right? So top 3 deep targets. So again, obviously Iowa State thought that he was a great deep ball target. They accentuated that a lot in their system, and he came up big time for them as well. Ty Felton also jumped from 6th to 4th here. Jordan Watkins from 8th to 5th. One of our bigger climbers, Kyle Williams out of Washington State, actually one of our biggest fallers, or biggest climbers, went from 13th to 7th here. 13th and 40 times, so 4.4 right on the cutoff line, right? But he was 3rd in deep ball reception percentage, 58.3% on 24 targets, and 5th in drop percentage. So again, pretty good numbers there. And again, was one of the more highly targeted deep ball threats on this list as well, getting a little bit of a bump there. Let's look at somebody who fell a good amount. Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn was 7th in 40 time, but by the time we got through these evaluations for him, fell 3 spots to 10th. Arian Smith was probably the biggest dropper. Yeah, Arian Smith was the biggest dropper in this group. Arian Smith had the 5th highest 40 time in our collection. Again, 4.4 better, 4.41 because of the exception. 5th fastest 40 time, 4.3640. Very fast dude. Was 5th in vert, but also had the 2nd worst drop percentage. This dude dropped 36.4% of his deep ball targets. That's 17 of those targets in 2024. That is a massive amount of dropped deep ball targets. So if you're going to be, and again, we're looking for explosive deep ball receivers, you can't come in and be a deep ball receiver if you can't catch deep passes. So 36.4% of his 17 targets. 10% is what, 1.7, so nearly 40. So you're talking about 5 dropped passes on 17 deep ball targets. That's 5 more completions that Carson Beck should have had, 5 more big gains that the Georgia Bulldogs should have had, right, et cetera, et cetera. So he drops from 5th overall after the 40 time to 13th because of those. Again, one of the worst drop rate here of deep ball passes went to Isaiah Nair out of Nebraska. He goes from 12th in the 40, so he runs 4.40, but also had one of the worst drop rates. 50% of his 15 targets were credited as his drops, according to PFF. That is not good. Speaking of our top 3 deep ball targets in the 2024 class from this 4.4 or faster, 4.41 or faster group, Ty Felton was the most targeted deep ball target. Maryland, Jaylin Noel from Iowa State was 2nd. Kyle Williams out of Washington State finished 3rd. So that's how we stacked them after the tape, but after the data, before the tape. After the tape, we got our top 7 using our eyes, because that's what we always want to use. I've got the pluses, I've got the minuses, the ups, the downs of each player that made our top 7. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that today thanks to our friends over at Amazon Fire TV and Locked On. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You get the latest technology with elevated playing with Wi-Fi 6.6E and auto low latency mode. Advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. And with 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus Max, and more. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Xbox Game Pass, unlimited subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we are racking and stacking our top 7 explosive wide receiver options in the 2025 NFL Draft. Again, we went through with our first discriminator, the 40 times, 4.41 or faster to be on this list, period. If you ran anything, if you ran 4.42, you're not on this list. So guys who want guys like Jaden Higgins on this list, clearly Jaden Higgins, one of my favorite evaluations of this draft period because I keep mentioning his name, but he would be on another list. We can get time before the NFL draft kicks off to get to another receiver list. Certainly Jaden Higgins, I would expect to be on that list. Although nobody gets on this list just because I want him to be there. They got to prove it through the tape. They got to prove it through the data and all that stuff. That's what we're trying to do here is marry the data with the tape. So we got the data. Now let's get to the tape because that's obviously the most important part and how we ultimately get to our top 7. Remember, Matthew Golden started off number 1, 4.2940, fastest 40 of the group, fell to number 2 after we looked at verticals, after we looked at reception percentages of deep ball pass attempts, and after we looked at drop percentage of deep ball pass attempts. Well, once you turn on the tape, you see a 3-level receiver. You can do it short, you can do it intermediate, you can do it deep. Shows up in big moments. This is a clutch receiver for Quinn Ewers last year, and I'm going to tell you, Jaden Daniels, spoiler alert, better quarterback than Quinn Ewers. So if he can show up, and Matthew Golden can show up for Ewers, he can show up for Jaden. Where he doesn't shine so much, play strength is a little bit questionable. He does have some focus drops on tape, but he makes a lot more plays than he leaves on the field. 5'11", 191 pounds, first-round projection for a reason. Again, depending on who you look at, depending on which mock you look at, I've seen him go as high as 14. I've seen him go as low as 26. I actually saw one mock draft where he went 29th to the Chiefs because the Commanders traded out of 29, and the Chiefs came up to get him, and everybody was mad at the Commanders because, bro, how are you going to let them get another fast Texas receiver, right? So Matthew Golden goes from number 1 to number 2, back to where he belongs to number 1. Matthew Golden, our top receiver on our big board. And if you don't consider Matthew Golden a totally realistic option or a potential option for the Washington Commanders, then our number 2 guy, Luther Burden III, certainly fits the bill. 6 foot tall, 206-pound receiver with a second-round projection, 14th in the 40, 4.41. So again, he meets the criteria only because we extended it to get at least 14 receivers on this board. But he is his plus side comes from being an athletic playmaker. He is again a 3-level receiver, can separate at all 3 levels of the field. Now, the knock on him is that he did appear to get lazy, does appear on tape to get lazy at times when he knows the ball's not coming his way or when his route is covered by the defense and he knows he's not going to win. He does appear to get a little bit lazy at times. And Missouri, I would say, did not feature all of his traits all the time. I used to say the same thing about Michael Thomas. I said it about Terry McLaurin. I even said about Ezekiel Elliott when they were all at Ohio State. They have talent to do more than what they're being allowed to do at Ohio State. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson were the same type of players. Now, by the time Olave and Wilson came out, McLaurin was out, Michael Thomas had come out, and people kind of said, oh, okay, Ohio State doesn't necessarily reflect everything these guys can do. I think Luther Burden is a similar type of player, and that's why I give him that bump up to our second spot, probably our biggest gainer, because he goes from 14th and 40, 14th after the stats, to second on our big board after watching the tape. Our third guy on the tape, he was third after the data. He stays in third place. Jaylin Noel out of Iowa State, 5'10", 195-pound, 194-pound receiver. Third round projection right now, 9th and 40. Came in first in the vert, first in our drop percentages, 0 drops on 24 deep ball targets. Top 3 deep target guy on this list. So Iowa State love to target him deep. Great separation ability, return specialist on top of it. So all those things are really good. Does have some focus drops again, like Matthew Golden has. Route sharpness could be better, especially on outbreaking routes. Outbreaking routes, he tends to round them off, drifts upfield a little bit. That's prime opportunity for DBs to undercut a ball. Go back to the Miami Dolphins joint practices during training camp, not because Terry McLaurin rounded a route off or anything. Terry McLaurin slipped on the field. Jaden Daniels, thrown with anticipation, allowed Kendall Fuller, the cornerback, to make a break on that when Terry fell. Gets the interception and close out the practice. Well, Jaylin Noel, it's not a slipping problem, but the same thing happens. If you round your route off and drift upfield, it allows that DB to cut underneath of the pass and ends up getting intercepted. So Jaylin Noel certainly would have to fix that. Our fourth guy, our tallest guy, 6'5", 205 pounds, Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. Look, he's got an early day 3 projection, but I'm just telling you what I see, telling you how I feel. This is my fourth dude on the big board. He started off at number 2 at the 40, 4.340, went to number 1 after the data and the tape, dropped him down a little bit because he's not as complete as some of these other receivers, not as dynamic as some of these other receivers, certainly not as much of a 3-level threat as some of these receivers, but he doesn't fall that far. He's our fourth guy. 2nd and 40, first in deep ball reception percentage, first in drop percentage. Again, one of several guys with 0 deep ball drops on 34 targets. That's a lot, or on 10 targets. Sorry, that's not a lot of targets, but it's still, you love the fact that you're not seeing him drop any of those, right? Ball tracking. Turn on the tape, and you're going to see Dante Thornton on those 10 deep ball receptions or targets. Ball tracking, very good. Contested catches, something he's good at. Not a lot of targets, again, relatively, so that makes it a little bit harder to swallow. And his route sharpness, when you're not going vertical, could also be adapted. That's why he's an early day 3 guy, because he doesn't look like the most complete receiver. But I'll tell you what, man, when you look at what the Commanders need with Terry McLaurin, with Deebo Samuel, with Noah Brown, all these guys, Dante Thornton, like, he may only be able to do a little bit as a rookie, but what he does a little bit, the Commanders can use a lot of it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why he's going to be number 4 on my list. Right behind him, not far off, is Isaiah Bond, our 5th receiver out of Texas, 5'11", 180 pounds. His projection is everywhere. I literally have for his draft projection, I just have, yep, he's going to get drafted. I've seen him mocked in the first round. I've seen him mocked into day 2. The mocks on him are very, very spread out because he doesn't have a lot of experience, right? He was just kind of the second dude in Texas. For us, he started off 9th with a 4.39 40, went up to 6th because of the 0 drops on 14 deep ball attempts. Now, he did run a 4.35 at his pro day, which may have elevated him a little bit higher than that 6th place. Ultimately, he climbs one more spot. I like his potential. He's got wide slot versatility. He's a yards after catch monster. He's the kind of guy that you look at and say, okay, Deebo's here for a year. Isaiah Bond basically takes over for Deebo after that. You would certainly see him as that, not as built as you would like for a 5'11" guy, but certainly built enough. 6th place is Chim Dike out of Florida. Started off as our 3rd guy, 4.34 40, 6'1", 196 pounds. So again, a little bit of a thinner frame, but runs at 4.3 40. Ended up 8th because of his 4th place deep ball reception percentage. No drops on 18 targets of 20 air yards or more, and finishes 6th place. Tough receiver. Has good acceleration, played for Wisconsin before he played for Florida. Has some drops, mostly due to sometimes being too late with his hands. You want late hands as a receiver, but sometimes he's a little too late. Ball gets on him a little bit, gets a little bit loose on that. Now, I do think he improved on that as the year went on, personally. I don't have the data behind it, but just as I watched him, I felt like it got better as the year went on. So perhaps it was a little bit of a scheme comfortability. Perhaps it was a little bit of quarterback comfortability, right? And we all know that Jaden Daniels, one of his hallmarks is working with his receivers. So Chim Dike out of Florida, one of those top guys. 7th place, our final guy on our top 7 big board, Jaylin Lane, receiver from Virginia Tech. Started off 4th with his 4.34 40, dropped to 9th thanks to the data. 2nd invert, which is great, but he also had the 3rd worst drop percentage, which is why he's a day 3 prospect. 5'10", 191 pounds, tough runner, has return capability. Those drops are concerning. Suddenness is a little bit lacking, and that's kind of where you get to when you get through here. We've got Troy Horton, 8th, 196 pounds, 6'2.5", a little bit frail. Their day 3 guy, again, team captain, so you love that. He is quicker than you would think he is for his size, but doesn't do well against press, doesn't have a lot of play strength as well. Jordan Watkins comes in 9th, 5'11", 196, day 3 prospect. Good strength, right? Like a tough runner. Could almost see him filling some sort of like running back, but also screens, a lot of those type of like almost like Deebo Samuel type of things. Does have return specialist. He's a return specialist ability. He's a body catcher. I hate body catchers. Also doesn't separate very well. When you're 5'11", you need to be able to separate, and he doesn't do that very well. 10th is Isaiah Nair out of Nebraska, 6'4", 218 pounds. Almost our biggest dude, but not quite. Ran a 4.4, but also dropped 50% of his 15 deep ball targets. He does actually have an ability to separate, has a really good catch radius, but he plays smaller than he should, which is why he's low here. Now, if you can get him late day 3, like if you get him in the 7th round, that's great value. You know what I mean? He's got potential. You got to make him tougher. You got to make him more. I feel like a lot of it's confidence. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence in Dylan Raiola, his quarterback in Nebraska, or scheme, or himself. If it's lack of confidence in himself, that's harder, right? But if it's lack of confidence in the scheme, lack of confidence in the quarterback, then you can work with that, I think. Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams is going to be the biggest surprise here. Started off 13th, 4.4 40, so he barely made the cut. Jumped to 7th because of his 3rd best reception percentage on deep balls. Did have the 5th lowest drop percentage, so those are good. 5'11", 190 pounds. He's my 11th receiver, and he's a 2nd round projection. I just don't see it, guys. I just don't see it. Look, he was one of the top 3 deep target guys, so obviously Washington State loved to target him. You know what I mean? He's got slot outside ability, does well against press. has a lot of drops in his history. And he just looks clunky, man. Everything he does just looks like it just takes too much strain. I see the potential. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like bag the dude. Um, but I don't see the second round potential. I see him much more as a late third, early fourth. I see him as a developmental type of project. Ty Felton out of Maryland is our 12th guy, 6'1", 183. Don't like that frame, and it leads to a lot of struggles in strength part of the game, physicality. He's very much a behind the line of scrimmage screen guy, but he did have the top 3 deep targets, right? A lot of production out of Maryland, but a lot of volume out of Maryland as well. Ball tracking is one of his skills, which is good. Third in vertical, so you can get up there, 6th and 40, 4.37. Early day 3 projection. I don't hate getting him there if you can get him there, but not as big on the fact that you're a little bit frail, but you're also a lot as tough. Dominic Levitt comes in 13th for us. He doesn't do well against physical coverage, doesn't separate a lot. Keandre Lambert-Smith, another day 3 prospect, 14th for us. Doesn't have any suddenness, not really a lot of separation. The break point is good at ball tracking, so if you can get him on a straight line with that 4.37 40, certainly has some ability there. Arian Smith, our biggest dropper, man, 5th in the 40, 4.36 40, put him 5th place to start. He finishes dead last. 6 foot, 179 pounds. That's not a frame at all. 7th round projection for a reason. He's got speed. That's about all he's got. Drops the ball. Doesn't have a great frame. Not a lot of physicality. So Arian Smith ends up dead last in our list. Some undrafted free agent candidates for you guys to know about draft weekend. Chris Tyree out of Virginia. He should be about a 4.2, 4.3 guy. Didn't go to the combine. Worked out for the Commanders at the local pro day. 42-inch vertical at his pro day for Virginia, which would be best in the group, but we didn't have an official 44 from him. He's 5'9". He's got return experience, so you like that. Monterey Baldwin out of Baylor, 4.32 guy at his pro day, 34-inch vert. He's only 5'9", but again, he has kick return experience. Silas Bolden is another receiver out of Texas that you should know about. Projected to be undrafted, 4.38 40, 34-inch vert at his pro day, 5'8" with extensive kick and punt return experience, both at Oregon State and Texas. I think I'd probably go Chris Tyree first, then Silas Bolden out of Texas, followed by Monterey Baldwin out of Baylor. So some undrafted candidates there for you. So we threw 18 names out here for you to consider this draft weekend. That is our explosive receiver big board. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you carry it with you. Tell all your friends, tell all your families, tell your mom to check it out. On the next episode of Locked On Commanders, we're going to break down yet another position group. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, all you got to do is text me. To do that, you have to just become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders for your next listen. Check out the Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft. Go inside the Locked On War Room for all 32 picks in this ultimate 7-episode series. The Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Drafts YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Where I picked for the Washington Commanders is on this channel on YouTube, so you don't have to go anywhere. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day, everydayers. Thanks for coming through every single day. If you're out and about, please be safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.